all right, let's talk Jameis Winston like I said, Bill Barnwell currently has your New Orleans Saints as having the 29th worst offseason in the entirety of the NFL. And why this jumped out to me is not just because, the general, the team that I support was something bad was said about them. But why this is so interesting to me is this is not a sentiment that is echoed here locally, right? Like everybody who covers the Saints, beat reporters, writers, et cetera, seem to think that this was a very positive offseason for the New Orleans Saints. I mean, we just had an article from Jeff Duncan the other day in the Times-Picayune where he was talking about basically all the holes have been filled in this roster, and running back is the single biggest question mark on the team. And if your single biggest question mark, and I know this is due to Kamara's potential suspension, but if your single biggest question mark is a position group in which you have Alvin Kamara, that's a pretty good roster. That's why guys like, was it Lewis Riddick? No, it was Dan Orlovsky, who a few weeks ago after the draft of the Saints, I think it was maybe like a third best team in the NFC. So Barnwell's take does seem to be at odds with a lot of local talking heads and many other talking heads. So why does Bill Barnwell disagree so vehemently with us locals? And he goes on in the article to give the Saints credit for getting Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu and Jarvis Landry all on high-value deals, right? The prices were lower. The potential payoff is larger. He gives them credit on getting value in the Winston deal as well. So what's the issue? There's a few. He thinks Mike Thomas's contract is bad. And Mike Thomas has not played 2 years, so I get where he is coming from. I would say if there's one point, though, that I think is clearly wrong in all of this, it would be that. Now, I'm betting on Thomas, right? And maybe that's a dangerous game. But when you look at what receivers are being paid right now, if you even get close to the Mike Thomas that you had pre-injury, well, you're getting a massive steal. Again, I can't get away from this. Christian Kirk is making $18 million a year. Mike Thomas is making $20 million a year. Huge value if he's a 1,000-yard receiver once again. Says the Andrews Pete deal is bad. Well, no argument there. Mentions Kamara's legal trouble. That's a problem. Teron Armstead leaving. That's a problem. But it seems like the biggest problem that he has is that he believes that the Saints gave up too much draft capital to get good this year. Essentially saying that the deal that they made with the Eagles, and I get it, right? Giving up a first-round pick from next season to basically, giving up, I think it ended up being like a second and a third, maybe a couple others to basically make next season's first-round pick this season's first-round pick. That is a win-now investment. And it's a win-now investment in a team that no longer features Sean Payton and Jameis Winston. And that's a problem for Barnwell. We don't happen to think that's as much of a problem. So the question is, who is right? And obviously, like all of these things, right, all these conjectures and kind of just hypotheses, only time will tell who is right. But it is clear that regardless of which side this falls on, the biggest determining factor will be Jameis Winston. If the Saints are a playoff team next year, Jameis Winston is the guy, a true franchise quarterback, well, then all of a sudden the need for that first-round pick next year is lessened greatly. There's no need to go in the quarterback sweepstakes or anything else like that. And if he is a true franchise quarterback, well, guess what? You got him on a cheap deal, which is great for roster building around him. If Olave and Penning end up being great, then all of a sudden you got massive value at wide receiver and you have true bookend tackles once again. Now, I guess the danger comes in that these are all things that could go amiss or awry. Maybe Jameis is more the 30-interception quarterback in Tampa, and all the excuse-making and everything, all the explanation and explanatory factors that we've thrown out there as to say why that season went the way that it did, maybe they're just that, excuses, and maybe he isn't good, right? I would still bet on Jameis, and we'll get to some numbers as to why. I think one of the bigger kind of potential pitfalls are in those rookies, Olave and Penny. They have a ton of pressure on them to be good immediately, and probably Penning even more so than Olave, right? I mean, Penning is expected to step in and be a bookend left tackle from day one, essentially, which is incredibly hard, especially when you look at the jump up in competition. Where do you go? I was in Northern Iowa, right? Northern Iowa. Yeah, the jump to go from Northern Iowa to the NFL and, oh, you got to be a day one starter. Like, damn, that's a lot. It's a lot. And we've seen these potential plays not work out for the Saints recently. They heavily invested in Marcus Davenport. He's always been on the edge of being good, but he's never been consistent, right? Peyton Turner, to some extent. Now, he's younger, and so you give him a little bit of a pass for year one. But then again, if Trevor Penning turns in the year one that Peyton Turner had, that would be a huge disappointment and a huge knock against his team. Those are two guys flashing potential but never fulfilling it consistently. Will Olave and Penning be able to be more like Ryan Ramczyk, right? I mean, that is the big question here. And then will Jameis be that guy? Now, you've probably heard me use the term copium a lot lately. That is a term that I have stolen from the MMORPG video game sphere, where basically the collapse of World of Warcraft has led a lot of players who are suddenly without a game they love, trying to find any scraps of bits of information to be overly optimistic about something, whether it be a different game or the return of WoW. They are huffing copium. Well, in an offseason where you move on from Sean Payton and Drew Brees is gone, you now clearly thrown in your lot with Jameis Winston. Allow me to present you with some of that Jameis 1 of 1 top grade A quality copium, as he released some more numbers yesterday that should make you pretty excited. Now, as we already know, some of the best numbers that we've talked about, here are Jameis Winston's NFL ranks in 2021, a minimum of 7 starts, the amount of starts that Jameis Winston had. EPA, it's expected points added per play. That is the main single metric that a lot of advanced analytics guys look at if determining whether or not a player has been a net positive or negative on the team. It's a great single stat. He was number 2 in the NFL in EPA. He was number 2 in the NFL in adjusted EPA. He was number 4 in total QBR, number 4 in raw QBR, 7 in passer rating, number 3 in touchdown interception ratio, number 5 in average yards per attempt, another one of those great single metrics that combine efficiency as well as, are you taking shots, are you going for shots, number 4 in yards per scramble, number 1 in touchdown percentage. Well, damn, those are pretty good numbers right there. You're saying, but T-Valve, I don't know, man. They really put the guide rails on him last year. They didn't really let him unleash. They didn't ask him to do a ton. So those numbers are all solid, but they're all low volume, right? Well, yes, you are correct. But for the rest of Jameis Winston's career, he has been high volume. And you know who's a quarterback that's pretty hot right now? People love him. Super Bowl champion, Matt Stafford, right? Well, Jameis 1 of 1 yesterday, tweeting Jameis Winston versus Matt Stafford, looking at their first 7 seasons and the total QBR. And now, to be fair, Stafford was not in a great position in terms of the franchise he was a part of, and neither was Jameis, right? Maybe the line's worse, but you are kind of splitting hairs here. So, in their first 7 years, how did these two perform? Well, interestingly enough, I don't know that I want to go year by year here, but out of these 7 years, 5 years, Jameis Winston finished with a higher total QBR, including in year number 7, a significantly better number than Matt Stafford. Jameis Winston with a 64.4, Matt Stafford 58.3. If you average their first 7 seasons, total QBR, Jameis Winston comes out in the lead, 56.2 to 53. So we love the way that Stafford has developed later in his career. We saw the immediate jump up in success that he had when he got to a more stable and better franchise. I mean, remember that? Like the old deal with Matt Stafford was he could not beat teams with winning records. No matter what, no matter how good he was that year, no matter if the Lions were making the playoffs or not, they could not beat teams with winning records. What happened when he went to a stable franchise with good coaching? He won a Super Bowl immediately. Can you see that same sort of jump out of Jameis Winston? I mean, all the potential is there. Like we said, all those advanced analytics, the QBR numbers, it's all there. What happens when he gets to fully take over a more stable franchise? And as Nick Underhill told you yesterday, this is a guy giving off the vibe of he has to be successful because the alternative is quite literally unbearable for him. So again, copium, Yes, that's okay. This is the offseason. This is where we cultivate copium. It's where it thrives. And for what it's worth, these numbers are legit, right? And you can say you're framing them one way or another, but the numbers are the numbers. And analytically, Jameis Winston has been very good. Will he be very good again this year? Time will tell. And ultimately, whether or not he is good will determine the quality of this New Orleans Saints offseason. And eventually, we will figure out who is right. Us here, the copium-addicted locals, or the national writer up in his NFL tower, casually looking down at all 32 fan bases. Is Barnwell correct? Only time will tell. All right, when we get back here, let's talk a little LSU baseball as the Hattiesburg Regional is quickly approaching. And then we got our guy Ronnie Rance coming in to do the same, as well as preview a little Rougarou action if you're looking for some local baseball. So keep it locked right here on Off the Bench.